Hey, movie fans. You know, sometimes there are these movies that kind of fly under the radar, but are total gems for those who've seen them.
Oh, for sure, definitely. Some real hidden treasures out there.
And today, we're diving deep into one of those films.
Yeah.
Get ready for The Iron Giant.
A classic.
If you're thinking, oh yeah, that kid's movie with the robot, get ready to have your mind blown.
It's so much more than that.
Because honestly, this movie almost didn't even get made.
Really. Wow.
Yeah, a real underdog story.
It was. It was. You have to remember, back in the mid-90s, it was like Disney was ruling the animation world.
Right.
I mean, think Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, these huge, big-budget musicals.
Totally. Every studio wanted a piece of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Warner Bros. Was no different.
So picture this.
Oh,
Warner Bros., they want to compete with Disney, and in walks Brad Bird.
fresh off The Simpsons.
Exactly. And he pitches this idea for, get this, a rock musical
Interesting.
about, wait for it, a soulful gun.
A soulful gun. That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, pretty unexpected, right? But, they saw something in Bird's vision.
But there was a catch, wasn't there?
Oh, a big one. The budget.
Yeah. Warner Bros. Gave Bird a fraction of what Disney was spending on their films. Like a third, I think.
A third and
Hey.
half the time to make it.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Hand-drawn animation means 12 drawings for every single second of film. And they had to create a 90-minute movie with that.
Insane. How do you even wrap your head around that?
Right. But here's the thing. Sometimes those limitations, they can actually spark incredible creativity.
You're saying it was a good thing they had less.
Well, in a way, yeah. Bird had more freedom. He wasn't bound by all the expectations that came with a Disney-sized budget.
I see. So how did they actually pull it off? Give us the behind-the-scenes scoop.
They were pioneers, really. They used this new technology, what they called moving story reels.
Moving story reels.
Yeah, it was basically like watching a rough cut of the movie while they were still animating.
Whoa, that's impressive.
Yeah, they used Adobe After Effects to, animate their storyboards. That way they could see the story flow and spot any problems early on.
So with this moving story reels thing, they could catch mistakes and fix them before it's too late.
Exactly. Imagine the time and money it saved them. And remember, they were working with, a really tight budget and timeline.
Totally. It was a
Yeah.
smart move.
Yeah.
Talk about resourcefulness. Okay, so they're making the most of what they've got. Now, let's talk visuals.
Okay.
The Iron Giant has a very distinct look.
It does. It's got that classic Americana vibe.
Yes. Where does that come from?
They were inspired by these American artists like Edward Hopper and especially Norman Rockwell.
Rockwell, like the town in the movie.
Exactly. They even named the town Rockwell as a little tribute.
That's cool. And it really adds to the film's timeless feel, even though it deals with, Cold War anxieties and stuff.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
The visual style kind of grounds the story in this familiar setting, even while it tackles these big ideas.
And speaking of big, we got to talk about the Iron Giant himself.
The big guy.
This giant metal behemoth. How did they even bring him to life?
Well, this is where things get really innovative. While the rest of the film was hand-drawn, they actually used CG animation for the Iron Giant.
CG, back then, that was pretty groundbreaking, wasn't it?
It was, especially for a main character.
So why use CG?
They wanted to give him this sense of weight and otherness, like something you couldn't achieve with traditional animation.
That makes sense. And it worked. Like, you really feel his presence on screen.
You can almost hear the metal creaking.
Who came up with his design?
They brought in Joe Johnston,
Wait, Joe Johnston. The guy who designed the first 3 Star Wars movies?
the one and only.
Wow.
He gave the giant these really unique features, like double eyelids and a jaw that could slide.
Instead of just opening and closing?
Yeah, and those subtle things allowed him to be really expressive, even though he's this giant hunk of metal.
It's incredible how much personality they were able to give him.
Right.
And it's funny, thinking back to those budget limitations, it's like they had to focus on those small details.
And they made all the difference. Sometimes less really is more.
It's true.
They turned a potential weakness into a strength.
Exactly.
Pretty impressive, right?
Definitely impressive.
For movie fans like us, what's amazing about The Iron Giant is how it's this exciting adventure, but also really deep and moving.
It's true. Like, we've talked about how it's different from those classic Disney films.
Right.
But how did it really break the mold?
Well, it tackled some serious topics that you don't usually see in kids' movies,
Like,
The Cold War, fear of the unknown, Can good triumph even when faced with overwhelming power? Pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, especially with that whole Cold War paranoia
Right.
thing going on. And then you have this giant metal being that everyone's afraid of.
Right, everyone thinks he's a weapon. But the film flips that whole idea, doesn't it?
Yeah,
He's
totally.
not programmed to destroy. He's actually, like, innocent and childlike, even though he's super powerful.
Yeah.
And it's Hogarth, the kid who befriends him, who teaches him about being good, compassion, empathy, all that.
It's like, it's not just a boy and his robot story. It's about, like, the choices we make
Exactly.
and our potential to be good even when the world's telling us otherwise.
You got it. It's a message that connects with everyone, no matter how old you are.
Definitely.
Which is probably why it's become such a cult classic, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't do so well when it first came out, right?
Not really, no. Got some mixed reviews, but then people found it on home video, started telling their friends, and word of mouth just took off.
It's one of those movies that once you see it, you got to tell everyone about it.
For sure. And that says a lot about how sincere it is, how it touches people on a personal level.
It's true.
It's a film you can watch over and over, and you'll always find something new in it.
So it broke the mold with the story and themes, but it also impacted animation.
Yeah. You're thinking of the moving story reels.
Yeah. Simple idea, but revolutionary for the time.
Oh, yeah. Game changer. Before that, animators could work forever on a scene, not even knowing if it would fit in the movie.
That's tough.
Right. Putting all that effort in only to realize later, uh-oh, this doesn't work.
Devastating, especially with hand-drawn animation.
Exactly. But with moving story reels, they could see a rough cut early on, find the problems, fix them faster, made the whole process smoother.
The Iron Giant was a great film and a pioneer.
It's true. And that innovation, it quickly became like the gold standard. Studios everywhere started using it.
It's wild to think that a film that went through so much trouble during production ended up shaping both how we watch movies and how they're made.
All thanks to Brad Bird and his team.
Pushing those boundaries, even with limited resources.
That's something all us movie fans can get behind.
Absolutely. Okay, we can't forget the music in The Iron Giant. I mean, it's one of those soundtracks that sticks with you.
It does.
What makes it so good?
It's by Michael Kamen, amazing composer.
I've heard the name.
He mixed this grand, epic feel with real intimacy, like capturing the wonder and adventure, but also those deep emotions.
Yeah, you have those sweeping melodies.
Totally. Making you think of space and the giant's power. And then it gets quiet, tender, showing Hogarth and the giant's bond.
It's brilliant.
He even used, like, jazz and blues elements with the orchestra.
Oh.
So unique and all done within that tight budget.
Again, doing so much with so little, The Iron Giant proves that sometimes those limits, they bring out the best.
They really do, and that's what makes it so fascinating for us movie fans.
So much to unpack.
The animation, the themes, the story.
It's more than a kid's movie.
Way more.
And in the last part of our deep dive, we'll explore even more of those meanings in The Iron Giant and talk about how it's still relevant today.
And how it keeps inspiring filmmakers and audiences, even now.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Welcome back as we finish up our deep dive into The Iron Giant. It's amazing to me how much more there is to this movie than you think at first.
Right. It's so much more than just a fun robot story.
Way more. It's like there are all these layers to it.
Definitely. And that's what makes it stick with people, even all these years later.
So let's talk about those layers, the deeper stuff. What was Brad Bird really trying to say with this film?
Well, one of the big things is this whole nature versus nurture question.
Yeah.
Like, is the Iron Giant a weapon because that's how he was built? Or can he be something else, something good?
Deep, and especially with the whole Cold War thing as the backdrop, all that fear, like technology's going to go haywire.
Exactly. The Iron Giant is like that fear made real, He could destroy everything, but Hogarth, that kid, he shows us there's another way.
Hogarth represents hope, right?
But we can be better, even when things look bad.
And it's funny, that message, it's like even more relevant now with how we're all kind of worried about technology sometimes.
Right, like will AI take over or whatever? The Iron Giant reminds us that we have the power to choose.
Totally. It's not just fate, it's our choices that matter.
And the movie also shows how those choices, they're shaped by what people tell us, by the messages we get from the world.
Like Kent Mansley, that government guy.
Oh, yeah. Mansley, he's all about fear.
Thinks the worst of everyone.
Thinks the giant has to be evil. Doesn't even try to see anything else.
And then you have Dean, the artist.
Total opposite, right. Sees the good, the potential in things.
Encourages Hogarth to think for himself.
Which is a huge lesson for all of us, right? Especially movie fans. We got to think critically, question stuff, be open-minded.
Don't just believe everything you see, right?
Exactly. Movies are powerful, but so is thinking for yourself.
Okay, got to talk about the ending. I mean, it just tears you apart, but then it lifts you up, too.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That scene where the giant sacrifices himself?
Yeah.
So powerful. What do you think Brad Bird wanted us to feel there?
I think part of it is like a classic hero story. You know, the giant becomes who he's meant to be, even if it means giving up everything.
But it's also about choice, right? Like, defying what people expect of you.
Totally. He could have just blown everything up, but he chose to save the town.
Chose to be good, even if it meant he wouldn't be around anymore.
And that's a big deal for kids watching, for anyone, really. You have the power to choose who you are, even if it's hard.
It makes you think about the world, about believing in good things, even when things are tough.
And that's something we always need, right? That message of hope.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So anyone listening who hasn't seen The Iron Giant, do yourself a favor and watch it.
Seriously, you won't regret it.
And for those who have seen it, maybe it's time for another watch. See it with fresh eyes.
You'll probably catch stuff you missed the first time.
It's a film that keeps on giving.
It really is.
And here's something to think about. What other animated films have surprised you? Like really made you think?
The ones that stay with you long after the credits roll.
Let us know. Until next time, keep watching those movies. And remember, there's always more to discover.
There really is.